The bride arrived at the wrong ranch, but the little girl whispered, "God finally brought you to us." Chapter 1. The stagecoach rattled over the dusty road, its wooden wheels grinding against ruts carved deep by years of wagons passing through. Clara tightened her grip on the small, worn satchel in her lap. It contained all she had left in the world: 2 dresses, her late mother's Bible, and a folded letter of promise from a rancher she had never met. The letter was written in a firm hand, offering her marriage, shelter, and a new beginning on a ranch somewhere beyond the wide plains. After her father's death and her aunt's cold refusal to keep her on, Clara had agreed. What choice did she have? A mail-order bride was the only door left open to her, and she had stepped through it with trembling hope. She whispered a prayer under her breath as the driver called out, "Next stop, Willow Creek Ranch." Her heart thudded. This was supposed to be it, the end of her journey, the beginning of her new life. She smoothed her simple bonnet, brushed dust from her skirt, and drew in a steadying breath. When the stagecoach lurched to a stop, Clara climbed down, boots sinking into the dry earth. Before her stretched wide, rolling pasture, split by sturdy fencing, and beyond that, a handsome ranch house shaded by an old oak. Horses grazed in the distance, and the smell of hay and earth filled the air. Clara clutched her satchel and looked around for the man who had written to her. Instead, the first one she saw was a little girl. She couldn't have been more than 6, with sun-streaked hair tumbling in loose curls and a patched blue dress. The girl's eyes, clear, curious, and so wide with longing, fixed on Clara as if she had stepped straight out of a dream. Before Clara could speak, the child ran up and threw her small arms around her skirt. "You came," she breathed, her voice trembling with joy. Then, lifting her face, she whispered, "God finally brought you to us." Clara's throat tightened. She crouched down, resting a gentle hand on the girl's shoulder. "Sweetheart, I think you must be mistaken. I'm here to meet." A deep voice cut through the air. "Annie!" Clara looked up. A tall man strode from the barn, his shirt rolled at the sleeves, chest broad and strong from years of ranch work. His dark hair was sun-bleached at the edges, and his jaw carried the shadow of a beard. His expression, however, was not one of joy, it was one of shock. "Annie, let go," he said, stepping closer. His eyes met Clara's, steady but guarded. "Ma'am, you're not who I was expecting." Clara rose slowly, dusting her hands on her skirt. I received a letter. I was told this was Willow Creek Ranch." The man's brows drew together. "This is Black Oak Ranch. Willow Creek is a half-day's ride east of here." Her heart plummeted. Heat rushed to her cheeks as she clutched her satchel tighter. Wrong ranch. Wrong man. The driver had already left, and her stomach twisted with shame and helplessness. But the little girl, Annie, didn't let go. She clung tighter to Clara's skirt, eyes shining with desperate hope. "Papa, it's her. Mama told me God would send someone, and he did. Don't send her away." The rancher's jaw tightened. For a long moment, silence stretched between them, broken only by the sound of the wind through the grass. Clara lowered her gaze, her voice soft. "I'm sorry for the intrusion. The coach must have taken a wrong turn. I'll walk to the road and wait for another." But the man shook his head. "The next coach won't be through for 3 days. You can't stand out there alone." His eyes flicked to Annie, still clinging to Clara. A sigh escaped him, heavy with something unsaid. "You'd best come inside. Until we figure this out." Clara hesitated, then nodded, allowing Annie to lead her by the hand toward the house. Inside, the ranch was warm but worn. The scent of fresh bread lingered in the air, though the table was set plainly. A faded quilt hung across the back of a wooden chair. The home spoke of love once strong, now kept alive by habit. The rancher set down his hat. "Name's Luke Carter. This is my daughter, Annie." Clara managed a small smile. "Clara Hayes." Luke gave a short nod. "You'll stay in the spare room tonight. Tomorrow, I'll send word to Willow Creek." Clara murmured her thanks, though her heart sank. She had traveled so far, braved so much loneliness, only to arrive in the wrong place. And yet, when Annie nestled beside her at supper, leaning against her as if they'd known each other forever, Clara felt something stir in her chest. It wasn't what she had planned. But perhaps, she thought, plans were not always God's way. And across the table, Luke Carter watched the scene with eyes dark and troubled, as if caught between duty and a hope he dared not name. Clara awoke to the soft light of dawn filtering through the curtains of the small spare room. The bed creaked beneath her as she sat up, smoothing the quilt that smelled faintly of lavender and wood smoke. For a moment, she almost forgot where she was. Then the memories of yesterday returned, her misstep at the wrong ranch, the wide eyes of a little girl, and the guarded kindness of Luke Carter. She pressed her hands together and whispered a prayer. "Lord, guide me. If it is not here I belong, then give me strength to keep walking until I find where you mean me to be." Downstairs, she found Annie perched at the table, legs swinging, hair messy from sleep. The child lit up when she saw her. "Miss Clara, Papa said you're stayin'." Clara laughed softly. "Just for a little while, sweetheart." Annie leaned forward on her elbows. "Can you braid my hair like Mama used to?" The question tugged at Clara's heart. She sat behind the girl, fingers working gently through the soft strands. Annie chattered about her pony, her chores, and how the nights were lonely without a mother to tuck her in. Luke entered then, carrying in a basket of eggs from the coop. He stopped short at the sight, Clara humming softly, Annie beaming under her careful touch. His gaze softened before he masked it with his usual quiet sternness. "You don't have to trouble yourself," he said. "It's no trouble," Clara replied, meeting his eyes. "Children need tenderness." Something unreadable flickered across his face. He set the basket down and busied himself with breakfast. The day stretched long but strangely pleasant. Clara, with nowhere else to go, offered to help with chores. She gathered eggs, swept the porch, and even mended a tear in one of Annie's dresses. Luke tried to protest at first, but as the sun climbed high, he found himself silently grateful. He had managed alone for so long, carrying the weight of both father and mother on his shoulders. Watching Clara kneel to show Annie how to plant wildflower seeds by the fence stirred something he hadn't felt in years: peace. That evening, after supper, Annie climbed onto Clara's lap with a book of Psalms. "Read to me," she asked, yawning. Clara opened the book, her voice low and gentle as she read words of comfort and promise. Annie's head drooped against her shoulder, and before long, she was fast asleep. Luke stood in the doorway, arms crossed, watching. His voice was low when he finally spoke. "She hasn't slept that soundly in months." Clara stroked the child's hair. "She misses a mother." Silence lingered, heavy and full. At last, Luke said, "My wife, Annie's mama, passed 2 winters ago. Fever took her quick. Since then, I've managed the ranch, but Annie," his voice caught, "she deserves more than I can give." Clara looked up at him, her heart aching. "You've given her love. That's more than many children ever know." His eyes held hers, and for a fleeting moment, the air between them shifted, like the pause before a storm, charged with something unnamed. The days that followed blurred into a gentle rhythm. Clara baked bread, mended shirts, and laughed with Annie in the sunshine. Each evening, Luke found himself lingering longer at the table, listening to her stories, watching the way her smile lit the room. But the truth loomed. One afternoon, a rider arrived with news from town. Willow Creek Ranch was searching for their missing bride. Clara's intended groom, an older man named Mr. Dalton, was awaiting her arrival with impatience. Clara folded the letter with trembling hands. Duty whispered she should go. Her promise was there, her future signed in ink. That night, she sat on the porch, staring at the stars. Luke joined her, silent at first. "Finally," he said, "Dalton's a good man. He'll provide for you." Clara's throat tightened. "But he doesn't need me." Luke turned toward her, eyes shadowed. "And what do you think we need?" She swallowed hard. "I think Annie has already decided that for you." At that moment, the door creaked open. Annie stepped out, rubbing her eyes. She climbed onto Clara's lap, wrapping small arms around her neck. "Don't leave us," she murmured sleepily. "God finally sent you." Tears stung Clara's eyes. She pressed her cheek to the girl's hair, heart pulled in two directions, between the life she had promised and the life her soul longed for. Luke's hand brushed hers, tentative but firm. "Clara, stay." The word hung between them, fragile and daring. She looked into his eyes weary from loss, yet filled with quiet hope. In them, she saw not just a man, but a home. Clara drew in a shaky breath. "I'll stay." Luke's shoulders eased, as if a burden had lifted. For the first time since she had met him, a true smile touched his lips. He reached for her hand, rough and warm, enclosing it in his. And under the vast sweep of the starlit sky, Clara knew the wrong ranch had been the right one all along.